Hi folks, Indices Rule 2 is when we have two expressions with the same base and we're dividing one by the other, we subtract the powers. But you probably want more detail than that, so let's crack on and get the job done. And Rule 2 is the division rule. We've got a to the power of 7 divided by a cubed. We know that a to the power of 7 is a string of 7 a's being multiplied. And then divided by a cubed is a string of 3 a's. Because they're in a fraction, we can start cancelling down the a's. And we're left with a string of 4 a's as our final answer. And the cancelling down of the a's is equivalent to subtracting the powers, because if we subtract the powers, we're left with a to the power of 4, which is what we had in our fraction. So remember, the cancelling down is equivalent to subtracting the powers. Therefore, a to the power of 5 divided by a squared, we can again cancel down, and cancelling down is equivalent to subtracting the powers, and we're left with a cubed as our answer. That gives us the division rule that when the base is the same, a, we can subtract the powers. Remember, the bases must be the same, but when the base is the same, we can subtract the powers. On to our example then. Our first example, y to the power of 5 divided by y to the power of 4. The rule is we can subtract the powers. 5 subtract 4 is y to the power of 1. Note we don't put 1 in our answer, but it is there, a power of 1. In our second example, the bases are the same, so we subtract the powers, leaving us with 5 to the power of 4. Note we don't actually divide the bases. If the bases are the same, the rule is we simply subtract the powers. That doesn't become 5 divided by 5 and leave us a base of 1. No. Similarly here, subtracting the powers, just be careful because we've got a negative power there, so we're subtracting a negative 3. Subtracting a negative is adding the positive, so that leaves us the power of 5. Once again, we don't divide the bases. And finally, what's the rule here? What can we do with the powers? Do we subtract the powers? And the answer is no, we don't subtract the powers because the bases are different, so there is no rule. If you wanted to find out the answer to that sum, you'd calculate the two things separately and then do the division. The division rule using algebra. Example number 1. Concentrate on the number 8 divided by 2, well that's clearly 4. Then the a term, a to the power of 4 divided by a squared, we subtract the powers, so our final answer will be a to the power of 2. So it's 4a squared. In example 2, look at the number 12 divided by 4, well that's 3. And then for the power of b, it's 3 subtract negative 2. Subtracting negative 2 is adding 2, so our final power for b will be b to the power of 5. In examples 3 and 4, where we've got two different letters, we concentrate on the letters separately. A to the power of 4 divided by a squared, we subtract the powers, so that leaves us with a to the power of 2. And for the b term, just be careful here. Although we can't see a number here, there is a power of b and it's 1. It's not a power of 0, it's a power of 1. So when we're subtracting the powers, it's 2 subtract 1. And that just gives us b to the power of 1, which is just b. And in example 4, let's look at the numbers. 20 divided by 2, well, that's clearly 10. Then the p term, that's p to the power of 1. Remember, there's a power of 1 up here. So the p term is a power of 1, subtract 2, and that will give us a power of negative 1. And then finally, the q term, it's 3 subtract negative 1. Subtracting negative 1 is adding 1, so our q power will be a power of 4. Let's put all this together then with a recap. In the expression 3 to the power of 5, 3 is the base and 5 is the power. When dividing two expressions with the same base, we subtract the powers. So the answer to this example would be 5 to the power of 3. When dividing two algebra expressions, deal with the number first and then each letter in turn. So 6 divided by 3 would be 2. A to the power of 4 divided by a squared, we subtract the powers to give us a squared. And the b term, b cubed divided by b to the power of negative 2. Be careful here, we're subtracting the powers, so the power becomes 3, subtract negative 2. Subtracting negative 2 is adding 2, so it becomes b to the power of 5. And if there's anything about the video you haven't understood, just watch it back. And if you have, that's great, because that's the job done.